Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to day 2 of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Vaibhava seminar. Day 2, we are in the first chapter of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're continuing on from verse 14. It's describing Vidura, and when he basically left home due to the threats and very bad treatment of Duryodhana, he left home and went on pilgrimage. So he's on pilgrimage now. So here we go. But first our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Niravishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha. Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Right, so verse 18, Vidura. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwaraka and Mathura. He travelled where the air, hill, orchard, river and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. So that's what he's doing. He's on pilgrimage. He left this very comfortable but very unsuitable social environment at home in the palace of the Kauravas in Hastinapur. So now he's on pilgrimage. So Srila Prabhupada says, because the verse says that he saw different forms of the unlimited decorating the temples. So Prabhupada focuses on that the atheists, they may consider the archer forms, the deity forms of the Lord to be idols. Idol generally meaning like some imagined form which is just arbitrarily attributed with having supposedly certain divine qualities, but it's just, you're just saying that it's like that. It's not that it is showing itself to be divine at all, because it's not divine. That's an idol. So atheists may consider the real deity forms of the Lord to be idols, but people like Vidura don't worry about that, because those deities, they are Anantalinga. They have unlimited potency, the same potency as the Lord. And Prabhupada gives classic example, which he has given on numerous occasions, the example of the post box and the post office. That somewhere there may be a post box. Of course, this is back in the days where there was no electronic mail systems at all. So if you want to send some communication, written communication to someone, then you got to write it, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on the envelope to cover the cost, and then either take it to the post office itself, or the post office, at least in those days, I guess still today to some degree, they have boxes placed here and there, like in shopping centers and where people go. So people can just drop their letter in the post box, and then after a little while, some days later, it will be delivered to the recipient, who could be even in another country, certainly in quite a different place. Yes, so these deities are like that. They're like the post boxes. They have the full potency of the post office, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. So like this, the deity form can deliver they can deliver the same potency as the Lord himself. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Vidura therefore could see nothing but Krishna in the different archa forms, and ultimately he was able to realize Krishna alone and nothing else. Yes, so he saw the deities as Krishna because they are Krishna. And there are numerous stories, even Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a few, of deities speaking, walking, and just doing all the regular things that living people can do. Verse 19, while so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. He's just moving around dressed, not dressed in the normal way of someone living in a palace, just enough cloth to cover the body and no fancy hairdo, probably just leaving his hair. And therefore people wouldn't recognize him. So back in the palace, they wouldn't get reports that, oh yes, Vidura is now in this place. Now he's in Vrindavan, now he's in Puri, now he's in Mayapur. Nothing like that. So Prabhupada comments, the first duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Lord and not worry about pleasing society, the people in general. So when on pilgrimage, there's no need to depend on social formalities or occupation or dress. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey. Going on pilgrimage to sacred places is very purifying, and it can really arouse one's sense of Krishna consciousness. Verse 20, thus, when he was in the land of Bharatvarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhasa Kshetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhisthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag. Yes, so Prabhupada makes the point at that time India was not known as India. If you asked anyone, have you been to India or something to that effect, they would not know what you're talking about. But because at that time it was known as Bharatvarsha. And even today, the one thing that I've noticed, of course, some of the people, the more religious people, they refer to India as Bharat. But on the money, it says in Hindi, Reserve Bank of Bharat. It doesn't say Reserve Bank of India, in Hindi at least. Yes, so it's still known as Bharat, at least in certain circles. So Prabhupada makes the point that world history only covers 3,000 years. It doesn't go back to these times which we are discussing right now. So before 3,000 years, the whole planet was under the flag of Maharaj Yudhisthira. There were not all these separate countries and states and whatnot. Yes, everything was under the one flag of Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he was running it very expertly. Now at the United Nations, there's so many flags. At that time, there was only one. And even Prabhupada commented about the United Nations that if it's really united, the number of flags should be reducing towards one. But actually, one sees at the United Nations headquarters in New York that every year there's another flag or a couple of flags because another country or another couple of countries have been formed. So anyway, many people, Prabhupada says, they're very eager to again have one state under one flag. But how to do this? They must seek the favor of Lord Krishna, who alone can help us become one worldwide nation. Okay, so verse 21. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhas, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this he proceeded west, where the river Saraswati flows. So, it really appears, it really is clear that there was not so much of a system of communication, nothing at all like there is today. And people might think, just see, we are more advanced. But actually the fact is that there's an overload, a massive overload of useless information. Useless or, not really useful information. Like Prabhupada said, when he saw the devotees had a telex machine, this is back in the early 70s, something like that. Telex machine, you could type out messages and the machine would send them instantly and the people would get them instantly. But when Prabhupada, and that was all there was. You could send a telegram if you wanted, but that was really, an expensive, actually, way of sending information. Telex, though, you could just type away and the message goes. But when Prabhupada saw the telex machine, he made some comment to the effect that, this is an opportunity to increase your prajalpa. He could understand the principle. Overload of information. And sometimes we get it too. There's a certain subject being discussed, important, but so many people are contributing ideas, and to find the main things, the main points, is so difficult. All right, anyway, so he found out. Now, after some time, he found out what had happened at Prabhas, how the Yadu dynasty had annihilated itself. The Yadu dynasty, of course, was based in Dwaraka. He had been based in Hastinapur. And even just between those places, there was really not much communication, unless people personally carried messages, walking or on horseback. Right, so Vidura, Prabhupada says, Vidura is related to both the Kauravas and the Yadavas. And the verses made the statement about how fire is caused by friction of bamboos. So Prabhupada makes a comparison between that friction of bamboo causing fire and passionate human society with rumors and bad talk and aggressive emotions, etc., causing fire. So now the whole world is like a forest. At any moment there can be fire, and not just at any moment, but rather there is always quite a few fires going on. Like today, it's amazing. So in a forest, generally no one goes there to set fire, but due to that friction between the bamboos, fire happens, and it may just burn down the entire forest. So similarly in the world, the fire of war happens, particularly of the violent passion of conditioned souls under the illusions of Maya. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, such a worldly fire can be extinguished only by the water of the mercy cloud of saints, just as a forest fire can be extinguished only by rains falling from a cloud. Let's carry on. Verse 22, on the bank of the river Saraswati, there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely Trita, Ushana, Manu, Pritu, Agni, Asita, Vayu, Sudasa, Go, Guha, and Shraddhadev. 11 places of pilgrimage. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed rituals. Okay, there's no purport there, so verse 23. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Here the sages, great sages, who had established these different temples and deities, they're referred to as Dvija Deva. Best amongst the twice-born, or godly amongst the twice-born. The residents, of course, of the heavenly planets are known as devas or demigods. Yes. And the Dvija Devas and the Devas, the best amongst the Brahmins, or the twice-born, and the demigods themselves, always established temples of Vishnu in his different forms. And Lord Vishnu can be recognized by those who know, because he has 4 hands and with the different items, but they're in different places. Being held in different hands. With one form, in the right hand, the top right hand is the conch shell. In another form, in the top right hand will be the chakra, like that. So the forms are identified by the positions of these 4, what Prabhupada called the 4 symbols of Vishnu: conch shell, chakra, club, lotus flower. So Prabhupada makes the point that amongst these 4, the chakra is the chief. And Krishna himself has only the chakra. he's the original form of Vishnu. He has only the chakra, so therefore sometimes he's referred to as Chakri. Then the tops of the temples, of course, all the Vaishnav temples, like here in Mayapur, I'm looking out the window right now, and I'm seeing the big chakra on top of the main dome of the TOVP. Yes. So that those temples marked with a chakra on top, they're usually very high so people can see them from a distance and remember the Lord. So some fools say that in the past there were no temples. The temples were only built recently meaning, some hundreds of years at most. But here Srimad Bhagavatam says that Vidura, on his pilgrimage 5,000 years ago, was visiting many temples. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the great sages and demigods never established statues of men or demigods, but they established temples of Vishnu for the benefit of common men, to raise them to the platform of God consciousness. Okay, so now we go on, devotees, to a long section. It's 20 verses. It's the sixth section. Vidura meets and inquires from Uddhava. It's verse 24 to 45. So it's 22 verses actually. Vidura meets Uddhava and inquires from Uddhava. Vidura meets and inquires from Uddhava. So I'm going to read the verses. 24. Thereafter he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Sovira and Matsya, and through western India, known as Kurujangala. At last, he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna. Verse 25. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, because Uddhava was, of course, a very close associate and like a minister, assistant of Lord Krishna in Dwaraka. Okay, so verse 26. This is now Vidura inquiring from Uddhava. Please tell me whether the original personalities of Godhead, who incarnated themselves at the request of Brahma, who was born out of the lotus flower from the Lord, and who have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone. So whether Krishna and Balaram, the original personalities of Godhead, are doing well in the house of Shurasena. 27. Please tell me whether the best friend of the Kurus, our brother-in-law Vasudev, is doing well. He's very munificent. He's like a father to his sisters, and he's always pleasing to his wives. 28. O Uddhava, please tell me how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life. Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmins, whom she pleased. 29. O my friend, tell me whether Ugrasena, the king of the Sattvatas, Vrishnis, Bhojas, and Dasharhas, is now doing well. He went far away from his kingdom, leaving aside all hopes of his royal throne, but Lord Krishna again installed him. 30. O gentle one, does Samba fare well? He exactly resembles the son of the personality of Godhead. In a previous birth, he was born as Kartikeya in the womb of the wife of Lord Shiva, and now he has been born in the womb of Jambavati, the most enriched wife of Krishna. 31. O Uddhava, does Yuyudhan fare well? He learned the intricacies of the military art from Arjuna and attained the transcendental destination, which is very difficult to reach, even for great renouncers. 32. Please tell me whether Akrura, the son of Swapalka, is doing well. He is a faultless soul surrendered unto the personality of Godhead. He once lost his equilibrium due to his ecstasy of transcendental love and fell down on the dust of a road which was marked with the footprints of Lord Krishna. 33. As the Vedas are the reservoir of sacrificial purposes, so the daughter of King Devaka Bhoja conceived the Supreme Personality of Godhead in her womb, as did the mother of the demigods. Is she, Devaki, doing well? 34. May I inquire whether Aniruddha is doing well? He is the fulfiller of all the desires of the pure devotees and has been considered from yore to be the cause of the Rig Veda, the creator of the mind, and the fourth plenary expansion of Vishnu. 35. O sober one, others such as Hridika, Charudeshna, Gada, and the son of Satyabhama, who accept Lord Sri Krishna as the soul of the self and thus follow his path without deviation, are they well? 36. Also, let me inquire whether Maharaj Yudhisthira is now maintaining the kingdom according to religious principles and with respect for the path of religion. Formerly, Duryodhana was burning with envy because Yudhisthira was being protected by the arms of Krishna and Arjuna, as if they were his own arms. 37. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long-cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle could not tolerate even the wonderful playing of his club when he stepped on the path. 38. Please tell me whether Arjuna, whose bow bears the name Gandiva, and who is always famous amongst the chariot warriors for vanquishing his enemies, is doing well. He once satisfied Lord Shiva by covering him with arrows when Shiva came as an unidentified false hunter. 39. Are the twin brothers who are protected by their brothers doing well? Just as the eye is always protected by the eyelid, they were protected by the sons of Pritha, who snatched back their rightful kingdom from the hands of their enemy Duryodhana, just as Garuda snatched nectar from the mouth of Indra, the thunderbolt carrier. 40. O my lord, is Pritha still living? This is Kunti. She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pandu, who was the greatest commander and who alone conquered the four directions simply with the help of a second bow. 41. O gentle one, I simply lament for he, Dhritarashtra, who rebelled against his brother after death. By him I was driven out of my house, although I am his sincere well-wisher, because he accepted the line of action adopted by his own sons. 42. I'm not astonished at this, having travelled over the world without being seen by others. The activities of the personality of Godhead, which are like those of a man in this mortal world, are bewildering to others. But I know of his greatness by his grace, and thus I am happy in all respects. 43. Despite his being the Lord, and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of the three kinds of false pride. Okay, so now 44. The appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could he serve by coming to earth? And the last verse is verse 45, which is the last verse in the chapter. O my friend, please therefore chant the glories of the Lord, who is meant to be glorified in the places of pilgrimage. He is unborn, and yet he appears by his causeless mercy upon the surrendered rulers of all parts of the universe. Only for their interest did he appear in the family of his unalloyed devotees, the Yadus. So that's the end, actually, of the first chapter of the third canto. Anyway, let's go back over it. That was just the verses, so let's go back over it. So it's the sixth section. Vidura meets and inquires from Uddhava, and it's from verse 24 to verse 45. So here we go, verse 24. Thereafter he passed, he meaning Vidura, thereafter he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Sovira, and Matsya, and through western India, known as Kurujangala. At last he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, the tract of land comprising about 100 square miles, from modern Delhi to the Mathura district in Uttar Pradesh, including a portion of the Gurgaon district in Punjab, or East India, is considered to be the topmost place of pilgrimage in all India, in the whole universe, for that matter, basically. And why is that? It's because Lord Krishna traveled through it so many times. He appeared in Mathura, of course. He was raised in Vrindavan. He went to Nandagram. And Prabhupada makes the point that in that area, basically Vraj Mandala, or, an expanded version of Vraj Mandala, there's still many devotees in that area searching for Krishna and the gopis. They don't meet him face to face, but their eager search is as good as seeing him. And, Prabhupada makes the point, it's very important. You can't really explain it in just everyday objective terms, but this can be realized by devotees, and particularly pure devotees. Krishna and his remembrance are on the absolute plane, and the idea of searching for him in Vrindavan gives more pleasure to the devotee than seeing him. Wow, Hare Krishna, isn't that amazing? Actually, they can see him, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita, verse 38, which Prabhupada then quotes. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Velochanena Santasadaiva Hridayeshu Velokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achincha Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. Those, which means those who are in the ecstasy of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shamsundar, Krishna, can see him always in their hearts due to love and devotional service rendered to the Lord. So Prabhupada concludes the point, the purport, by making the point that both Vidura and Uddhava were that elevated. They're on that level being mentioned here. And therefore they both came to the bank of the Yamuna and they met each other. Okay. So now on to verse 25. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Vidura was older than Uddhava, so he's sort of like a father, Prabhupada says. And therefore when they met, Uddhava bowed to Vidura. And Prabhupada explains that Vidura's brother Pandu was Lord Krishna's uncle, and Uddhava was a cousin to Lord Krishna, so there's about a generation's difference, 20, 25, maybe 30 years difference in their ages. So Uddhava was a great scholar of logic, a disciple of Brihaspati, associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of course. Very close associate indeed. So now Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of their relatives, although he actually knew they had already left this world because he had been at Prabhas and he found out there that's where it happened. So Prabhupada says, this inquiry appears to be very queer, very strange, but Srila Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus his inquiry was psychological and not practical. Well, I can give a little example of my own experience. When His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj left this world in a most incredibly unfortunate car accident at Shantipur, driver fell asleep. Then at the time I was in Singapore. I'd left, I think, the day or maybe 2 days before. And he had been there in Mayapur, and everything was fine. Anyway, I had to leave. I went to Singapore, and then I was with one of his disciples, quite a senior disciple from Singapore. And as we're just talking about this and that, Actually, I became sick and I ended up in a hospital, so he had come to see me in the hospital. Very nice of him. But in the middle of us just walking around and chatting, suddenly got a phone call from Mayapur that Tamal Krishna Maharaj had left this world. And I could see, we were just talking in a friendly way. It was nice. Then suddenly he entered into a state of shock. And he told me this is what he had been told. So then I was also shocked. I couldn't believe it. So I told him, no, it's probably not true. It's just some misunderstanding. Because I was trying to digest it myself. Yeah, so even though it was definitely true, and the information had come from someone who knew extremely well, someone on the spot, but still, due to shock, I was saying no, and asking questions, and I couldn't accept it. So this happens. This happens. All right, so let's move on to verse 26 then. And it's Vidura again. Please tell me whether the original personalities of Godhead, who incarnated themselves at the request of Brahma, who's born out of the lotus flower from the Lord, and who have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone, are doing well in the house of Shurasena. He's referring, of course, to Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, the personalities of Godhead. So Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, Krishna and Balaram are not two different personalities, because God is one without a second, and he expands himself in many forms which are not separate from one another. So Balaram's the first expansion, so he is Krishna, not like a second person exactly. And Prabhupada says, the immediate expansion of Lord Krishna is Baladev, and Brahma, born from the lotus flower from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, is an expansion of Baladev. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Lord Brahma is an expansion of Baladev. So this indicates they're not subject to the regulations of the universe, but the universe is under them. And therefore they came to relieve the world of burden, and doing so, they performed superhuman activities. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, because the happiness of the family of the Lord's devotees depends on the happiness of the Lord, Vidura first of all inquired about the well-being of the Lord. Okay, and on to verse 27. Please tell me whether the best friend of the Kurus, our brother-in-law Vasudev, is doing well. He's very munificent. He's like a father to his sisters, and he's always pleasing to his wives. So yes, Lord Krishna's father, at least in Mathura, outside of Vrindavan, you can just put it that way, Mathura, Dwaraka, like that. So Krishna's father, Vasudev, had 16 wives, and one of them, Rohini, was the mother of Balaram, who was this, and she was the sister of Vidura. Rohini was the direct sister of Vidura. An interesting little point is that Krishna, as the son of Vasudev, is known as Vasudev with a long A. Yeah. So Prabhupada explains, Vasudeva, therefore, was the husband of Vidura's sister, and thus they were brothers-in-law. And Vasudeva's sister Kunti was the wife of Pandu, who was Vidura's elder brother. So Vasudeva was the brother-in-law of Vidura. Yes. Kunti was younger than Vasudeva, and the duty of the older brother is to treat the younger sister as his daughter. Yeah. So whenever Kunti needed anything, Vasudeva provided it due to his love for her. And Prabhupada says, we quote, Vasudeva never dissatisfied his wives, and at the same time he supplied the objects desired by his sister. So he's helping these two different groups of people, of ladies. One group is his wives, 16 of them, and the other group is his sisters. But he gave special attention to Kunti as she became a widow at a young age. Yes, because Pandu died at a young age. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, while inquiring about Vasudeva's welfare, Vidura remembered all about him and the family relationship. On to verse 28. O Uddhava, please tell me how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life? Rukmini bore him as his son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmins whom she pleased. So there's a very short purport, extremely short purport by Prabhupada. I'll just read it. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Smara, Cupid or Kamadev, is one of the eternal associates of Lord Krishna. Jiva Goswami has explained this very elaborately in his treatise, Krishna Sandarbha. So when we get around to discussing Krishna Sandarbha, we'll find that, how Cupid or Kamadev is one of the eternal associates of Krishna. All right, so on we go to verse 29. Oh, my friend, tell me whether Ugrasena, the king of the Sattvatas, Vrishnis, Bhojas, and Dasharhas, is now doing well. He went far away from his kingdom, leaving aside all hopes of his royal throne. But Lord Krishna again installed him. There is no purport, so we move on to verse 30. O gentle one, does Samba fare well? He exactly resembles the son of the personality of Godhead. In a previous birth he was born as Kartikeya in the womb of the wife of Lord Shiva, and now he's been born in the womb of Jambavati, the most enriched wife of Krishna. All right, let's have a look at the purport here. So Lord Shiva is a plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord as Guna Avatar. Kartikeya is his son, and as such, he's on the level of Pradyumna, who is one of Krishna's sons. So when Krishna comes, his plenary portions come to perform different functions in the activities and pastimes of the Lord. But for Vrindavan pastimes, Prabhupada explains, the functions are performed not by plenary portions, but plenary expansions. How's that? Of Krishna. And Vasudev, Krishna, and note in the purport, if you've got the page open to the actual purport, you see that here now this is Vasudeva Krishna, who is the son of Vasudeva. So here, Vasudeva means Krishna has the long A, means the little line over the top of the A in the printing. So Vasudeva Krishna is a plenary expansion of Narayan. When Krishna appeared before Vasudeva and Devaki, he came as Narayan. Right. So similarly, all the demigods came as associates of the Lord in the forms of different forms, Pradyumna, Samba, Uddhava, etc. So we understand, we learn that Kamadev, Cupid, appeared as Pradyumna, Kartikeya as Samba, and one of the Vasus as Uddhava. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, all of them served in their different capacities in order to enrich the pastimes of Krishna. All right. And on to verse 31. O Uddhava, does Yuyudhan fare well? He learned the intricacies of the military art from Arjuna and attained the transcendental destination, which is very difficult to reach, even for great renouncers. So, this destination of transcendence is to become a personal associate of the Lord. And the Lord in this capacity is known as Adhokshaja, means he is beyond the senses. Then Prabhupada goes on to talk a little bit about the impersonalists and the jnanis. The impersonalist sannyasis give up this world to get the Brahman happiness. But Adhokshaja happiness is higher. And the same thing is there with the jnanis, the empiric philosophers, that the Brahman himself enjoys pleasure in his eternal form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So again, the impersonalists, after liberation, they enjoy Brahman bliss. But the Lord, who is Para-Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, enjoys eternally a bliss of his own potency, Hladini. And the empiric philosophers don't yet know about Hladini. So there are three features of the Lord's internal potency: Samvit, Sandhini, and Hladini. Samvit, it's not actually mentioned right here. No, it's not. But let me just say, Samvit is the potency of chit, or knowledge. Sandhini is the potency of existence. Sat, existence. And Hladini is the potency of ananda, or bliss. And there you have it, Sat. Well, the way it's done here, Chit, Sat, and Hladini. So the yogis and jnanis and them, they adhere strictly to the principles of yama, niyama, asana, dhyana, dharana, pranayama. These are all different aspects of Ashtanga Yoga. These are 6, actually, of the aspects of Ashtanga Yoga. There are 8. But the yogis, they are still unable to enter into the internal potency of the Lord. But for the devotees, that internal potency is easily realized by dint of devotional service. So Yuyudan achieved this, just as he got expert military knowledge from Arjuna. That's interesting. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying that thus Yuyudan's life was successful to the fullest extent from both the material and spiritual angles of vision. That is the way of devotional service to the Lord. So, devotees, on to verse 32, Vidura continues, please tell me whether Akrura, the son of Shwapalka, is doing well. He is a faultless soul surrendered unto the personality of Godhead. He once lost his mental equilibrium due to his ecstasy of transcendental love and fell down on the dust of a road which was marked with the footprints of Lord Krishna. Yes, so that's described, that Akrura came into Vrindavan, to Nandagram specifically, actually, and this place is there. There's a place there where there's a footprint of the Lord at Nandagram, sort of around the corner a bit, but it's Nandagram area, and there's the footprint of the Lord on a shila, on a rock. Yeah. And when Akrura saw this footprint or footprints, he fell down on them in the ecstasy of transcendental love, lost his mental equilibrium. So such a pure devotee is naturally faultless because of being always associated with Krishna. And when you're always associated in thought, constant thought of the Lord is antiseptic, and it keeps you free of the infections of Maya. So Prabhupada says, in the particular context of time and place, the transcendental emotions take a different turn, and this breaks the mental equilibrium of the devotee. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Lord Chaitanya displayed the typical example of transcendental ecstasy, as we can understand from the life of this incarnation of God. Okay, let's do verse 33, and I think we'll probably end there, or maybe after 34. Okay, so here we go, verse 33. As the Vedas are the reservoir of sacrificial purposes, so the daughter of King Devaki Bhoja conceived the Supreme Personality of Godhead in her womb, as did the mother of the demigods. Was she, Devaki, doing well? So Prabhupada comments, the Vedas are full of transcendental knowledge, spiritual values, and Devaki conceived the Lord in her womb as the personified meaning of the Vedas. What a wonderful description. So like this, there's no difference between the Vedas and the Lord. And the Vedas aim at understanding the Lord, and the Lord is the Vedas personified. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Devaki is compared to the meaningful Vedas and the Lord to their purpose personified. Okay, I think we'll have a go at verse 34. Vidura continues, may I inquire whether Aniruddha is doing well? He's the fulfiller of all the desires of the pure devotees and has been considered from yore to be the cause of the Rig Veda, the creator of the mind, and the fourth plenary expansion of Vishnu. Yeah, from yore, Y-O-R-E, means from the distant past. So, Srila Prabhupada talks about what are called the Adi Chaturbuja, the original, the first, Adi meaning first, expansions from Lord Balaram ultimately. They're Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. They're all Vishnu Tattva, so they're actually directly forms of the Lord. And when the Lord appeared as Lord Ramachandra, all these different expansions appeared for particular pastimes. Ram, of course, is the original Vasudeva, and his brothers were Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So Aniruddha, it's said, Aniruddha is the cause of Mahavishnu, from whose breathing the Rig Veda appeared. And this is all explained nicely in the Markandeya Purana. And then, when Krishna came, Aniruddha appeared as his grandson. Krishna in Dwaraka is the Vasudeva expansion from the original group. The original Lord Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, all the plenary expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva, and therefore there's no difference in their potency. Hare Krishna. So we will continue on from this point next time. For the time being, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.